Welcome to our breakout session on cost of production for 2023 and do you know your numbers? Those of you that listen to our early morning presenters, a few of these things, I'm going to end up, kind of touching base on as well, but I thought Paul Gertis's comments today about, black swan events and all of that kind of thing. The last 18 months has been a whirlwind. We've saw circumstances that, have came together that just are unprecedented with supply chain issues and the rapid increase of fuel, fertilizer, all of those sorts of things. So, the last 2.5 years, with the COVID and being sheltered down, I do use Facebook. And when COVID hit and we had more time on our hands, I had several friends and relatives that like to post these cute cartoons. So if I found something that caught my eye, I'd copy, paste it into a folder, and so I kind of like to throw a few of these in. We're in the holiday season here, and I thought I'd show a couple of these cute cartoons that did come along. And the next one here, this I actually used in my personal Christmas letter for this year. Dear Santa Claus, all I want is a fat bank account and a skinny body. Don't mix it up like you did last year. So we're hoping for the best in 23. So once again, to kick off our presentation, just kind of a little bit of a summary. Some of these things, like I say, were covered by Mark or Paul in his commentary. Mark Jarek also mentioned a little bit this morning as well. But some of these key things to follow. Just not here in the United States, we've got inflation, up and around 8% for the year. And I know talking to other economists and that type of thing, we complain about things here. Other parts of the world are really in a tizzy. Europe definitely is in a major recession. This morning, the two speakers talked about some of the issues there with their fuel issues, and starting way back last summer, thoughts of potentially parts of Europe having to shut down just to make sure they have enough fuel to heat their homes this winter. I mean, there's some real critical things happening globally and that type of thing in this arena that impacts you guys as production farmers here in northern Minnesota and in North Dakota and Canada, or where you're operating from. The farms in South America, a lot of our competition, especially those of you that raise soybeans, the Brazilian and Argentine economies are also having some major issues. Supposedly, Brazil, they're even budgeting, their country is budgeting, or Argentina, excuse me, it's for 60% inflation. Other global economists, or the U.S. World Bank people, are projecting 100% inflation. So virtually from 21 to 22, or going into 23, virtually a doubling of prices. We're scrambling at our 8%. That's big numbers for an economy to have to deal with. The energy prices, crude, natural gas, electricity have definitely been on the rise. Some of you guys that as you go in and pay off your lines of credit this fall, as you make those year-end adjustments, or you get your bank statements, significant increase in those operating interest rates. The highest one I think I've looked at for the farms I deal with Just updating the balance sheet here earlier in the week, 8.75% is the current rate that he's paying on his operating line. Started the year out at 5%. So all of those Fed rates with the variable rate have gotten passed down directly. Value of our US dollar, that's been bouncing around quite a bit. Does have impact on what we get for our products, or the cost that for other countries to buy our commodities. So when that gets valued at a premium to our effective dollar compared to their currencies, it just costs those foreign countries extra money. That is recently kind of dropped to the lower end of that range, but back, I think, the end of August, the US dollar was at about 114%, and I think currently we're down right around that 105, and that fluctuates virtually daily. Some of the other key issues, again, the transportation, the rail one, like I say, we heard some good news here earlier this week where Congress and President Biden came in and signed a bill to virtually avert some of our rail unions from going on strike, which would have caused major supply chain issues throughout the country, not only for those of us that deal with agriculture, but as a society. One number I heard from RFD TV, one of their announcers, that had a rail strike occurred, their best estimate, it would cost us as a country $1.3 billion per week in added cost to our virtually cost of living because of the supply chain disruption. So that's some big numbers. So they wanted to get that averted. This morning there was some talk, again with the Mississippi River. Paul Gertis alluded to some of the issues there in the cost. So this bullet here, I borrowed from Frayne Olson from North Dakota State. But long-term averages to get a bushel of soybeans down the Mississippi from, I think he was using St. Louis as the starting point to get a barge from there down to New Orleans, typically would be about 42 cents per bushel of soybeans. The week of November 1st, it went from virtually $300 and some to that 19, but equates from 42 cents a bushel to over $2.60 some cents a bushel. That's a heck of a price change. Who's absorbing that? So a lot of those bushels that moved down had probably already been contracted, so most likely did not impact the farmer, but those companies, somebody had to absorb that cost. The positive thing, that has definitely retraced. A week later, that 268 was down to $1.69. So it came down a lot, so like I say, that was the extreme peak. But it's still definitely way higher than normal. It was talk about, for us, getting fertilizer if it comes up the Mississippi. There's just issues with the river being lower. They can't put as much product on each barge. It's like trying to meander through a, some type of shuttle course or whatever, because of the, water levels are low, and, there's actually islands poking up that normally it's just two-way traffic, front and back on that southern end of the river. So all of those type of things can have some impacts for us. The world conflicts, again, last February when Russia invaded Ukraine, it's just really changed a lot of dynamics since that point. A couple others, the China-Taiwan issues, North Korea and their missile testing, just a lot of those political things to keep in mind. So all of those, I wanted to start out and preface that of when we look at these cost of production numbers that Betsy and I have put together, all of these are so subject to change. And as we go through some of the details, we'll talk about a few things that, can and will go or will change. These are just some numbers, or these are numbers that we have put together using historic numbers from our farm business management database to help support where we're looking at coming up with these generic costs of production. But as the title slide said, do you know your cost of production? The numbers Betsy and I put together don't mean squat for you individually. It might give you a good starting point, but you really need to know going into the spring, you need to do some homework and get a very close idea of what it's going to cost you to raise each of those crops on a per acre base. So,
do you want me to take over here?
Do you want to chime in?
Yeah. So FinBin, we didn't have the website written down. FinBin, F-I-N-B-I-N. Okay, if you guys can remember that website, you can just type that in. It's a financial bin. You guys know what a bin is. We just filled it full of numbers. And FinBin has something called the benchmark reports. And benchmark reports are one of the best things you can look at. They show you the range of everybody in our database, okay? They divide everybody up into 10 percentile, and they show you the range of what everyone has spent for fuel, labor, fertilizer. Because never fails, we'll go out to Jerry's farm, and Jerry will go, no, I'm a super low-cost producer, right? Isn't that something, Jerry, do you say that all the time? I'm picking on you. Yep. No, he's always above average, right? No, I'm great, Betsy, don't worry about me. And then we'll find a little number that go, oh, Jerry, you got to fix this, okay? So the benchmark reports, he's retired now, so I can pick on him. Or, halfway retired, yeah. So I can pick on Jerry. But there's always something on your farm that you're doing well and that maybe you needs a little bit of work. And so we do emphasize for these break-even prices that you have to know your own. So this slide I did not make, this is not in your copy. You guys only have a couple sheets in your, but this is what Ron and I spoke about last year. So Ron and I gave the same presentation a year ago, and these were the numbers that we were forecasting for your break-even prices. Now, Ron and I are busy right now crisscrossing the country, working with farmers to discover what their actual break-evens were. So we do not have the 2022 data available at this time, because the numbers that we come up with are not theoretical, okay? We don't sit in an ivory tower somewhere and try to come up with theoretical numbers. We are actually the boots on the ground, meeting with farmers, coming up with their cost of production. So we don't have those numbers ready yet, but this is what we were forecasting last year. So if you kind of compare that, the sheet that I handed out to you is the summary of our 23. And so we'll look at this here. I'll give you one of those too. Sorry, Ron, didn't mean to leave you out. We will get to your 23 break-even prices here in a minute. And so once again, these are similar to what we did last year. This is what we did last year. It shows you the adjustments that we made from 21 to 22. And I really didn't think we would be up here this year, adjusting everything upwards significantly as well. But realistically, that's what we're going to have to do. We have to take 21, we jacked up 21 costs to estimate 22, and now we're doing it again. We're putting inflation into it. Nothing has gone down. Has anyone got a cost out there that they think went down? There's got to be something, like Roundup is going down, right? There we go. You guys can all leave here happy because Roundup is going down. Is there anything else that's going down? I mean, fuel may be off the peak, but compared to where we've been, it's still historically crazy high, right? Anything else? Fertilizer's down off its peak. And last year, when we worked with farmers, the range we saw of where they bought fertilizer, I mean, there was a huge, we're talking 600 to 1,000, is the range that somebody paid for the same product depending on when they booked it. And how you're supposed to pick that one correctly, I don't know. But you know, when they were buying it for $1,000, you had to buy it for, $975 maybe is what they gave it to you for. But if you didn't buy it for $975, you weren't going to get it. Isn't that I mean, that's what the story was. You have to buy it today at $975, or you run the risk that this spring you won't have a pound to put on. So you kind of sucked it up and you wrote out the check, and yeah, I mean, it was tough. And so we made revisions last year. This is what we did for corn. This is soybeans when we did this a year ago. These are the revisions we made for soybeans. And then there's last year's revisions for wheat. And so last year, you know, we said 225% more on fertilizer for wheat. So we didn't go up 225% again for this year. But you know, last year we took a huge step up in costs. And unfortunately, we're going to be doing this. We're taking steps up again. Oh, sorry, sugar beets. We still have sugar beets on there as well. Okay, so now we're adding 23. Ron, do you want to?
Sure.
Okay, hold it. These are the ones that you guys should have in your folder. I did not print off our 22, but the 23 numbers are in here.
So again, looking at at this, so this is our 5-year Red River Valley data, which includes farms from both Minnesota and North Dakota. And so again, this is a 5-year average, 2016 or 17 through 21. So when Betsy and I did this presentation last year, it was 16 through 20 data. When I updated these earlier this fall to include the 21-year back out 16, virtually these prices did not change a thing. For crop inputs, we've been pretty much on a flat line. You know, we might get a little fluctuation, you know, between one category or another by $1 or something, but very, very consistent on the corn budget. So when I started putting some of this together, you know, for the 23 budget, you get the percent adjustment from 16 or the 5-year average to the 22, and then the adjustment percent for the 23 budget is an increase over what we had budgeted for 22. So on seed, I used 10%. Again, listening to different input suppliers and that type of thing, virtually everyone's saying figure a 10% increase in your seed cost. So move that from 101 to 111. The fertilizer, I actually got, these were based off of October prices from West Central Ag out of Ulen. And then I found a online calculator, figured roughly for 175 bushel corn yield. And so at that time, it came out to projected at $288 for fertilizer. I will comment that those prices from that same elevator as of last week, the gentleman that we got these from, he did a budget for, you know, an average corn analysis for his area. That number came down to about 208. So a significant drop. Betsy and I earlier in this week were discussing, you know, should we go and change this number or not? And it's like we talked about, you know, hey, this is important. You need to figure out, there was probably some people who put some fertilizer on earlier at those higher prices, or might have booked some at higher prices. Just because they're at this price this week, you know, they can go back up with all of those supply chain issues that we talked about. So the fertilizer is definitely the big one that's got some room for, you know, for wiggle room. The rest of them pretty much looked at an 8% inflationary adjustment from 22 to 23, figuring, you know, we're not going to get back to 1-2% inflation anytime soon. The one expense that I may be a little bit light on, and this is another one that varies so much for you farms, in geographic pockets, is the land rent. Gave a presentation back about a month ago, and farmland prices in Iowa last year, on average, from compared to, I think it was August of 21 to August of 2022, farmland values in Iowa increased close to 20%. Minnesota increased about 14%, but on average, land rental costs from 21 to 22, according to North Dakota State, increased only 3%. So a lot of the talk was last spring with all the uncertainty you producers were facing with supply chain, can you even get fertilizer, or can you get these chemicals? Can you get the seed variety you wanted? I think, a lot of the landlords, it's like the last thing we need to pile on is going to you guys and asking for a, $5, $10, $15, $20 increase per acre in your rental cost. But what we're hearing a lot of chatter this fall for land contracts that are up for renewal, it's definitely the landowners are wanting a slice of last year's revenue. So that's just kind of a little bit of the generics of some of the sentiments that went through my mind in kind of coming up with some of those. So Betsy, you can take into the next one.
Sure. So the one thing that used to be the case, it seemed like fuel and repairs were always kind of hand in hand. They were always kind of similar, and they're not doing that anymore. We found that the past couple of years, fuel and oil and your repairs have been different numbers, and that's something that's changed. It's been a unique situation, I guess. But you can see here for soybeans, fertilizer is still an impact. Everyone fertilizes differently. The chemical, gosh, I miss those days of like a spray or two of Roundup and maybe aphid if we need it. And that, of course, is not the case with most soybeans anymore. We need to do a lot more work on those soybeans. And yeah, the one thing I will talk about on here is overhead, okay? We see overhead in all of our number projections. And overhead is things like interest on intermediate debt would go into overhead. What else we got in overhead? Help me out. Overall,
utilities.
Yeah, utilities, overall
Insurance.
Custom hire. If you just have like a generic, not a crop specific custom hire, but something generic. Yeah, farm insurance is on there. Dues and fees, if you guys are, paying dues. And so overhead, machinery depreciation ends up in overhead. And so there are quite a few other costs that go into overhead. We do have books available at our booth, not a lot of them, but if you guys do want to take home a 21 Red River Valley book with a lot of numbers in it, okay? A lot of numbers, you can certainly do that, or they are available online as well. If you don't like paper, we got plenty of data online. Tuition would be overhead, yeah. So Jerry and Ron work together. How long do you guys work together? Forever?
Close to 30 years.
30 years, yeah. So I can kind of give Jerry a hard time because he's sitting in the front row and he actually probably knows these numbers better than I do. And so here's our numbers for wheat. Gosh darn it, that is just kind of makes you a little sick to your stomach when you look at how much it's going to cost to raise an acre of wheat next year. One thing I did put in, we got 5 minutes left? Do I?
Yeah, I'm supposed to go till about 12.
Oh, okay, excellent. Okay, excellent. Okay. Sugar beets, this does not include any JV on the sugar beets. That is a unique situation for every producer. And so we did not throw in there sugar beet JV numbers. But all of these numbers you have in your book. Sugar beets have been pretty stable, especially when it comes to seed cost. We've been $225 to $230 seed. I don't think sugar beet seed has gone up for a long time. Welcome to 2023. Now there's a new trait, and you're looking at $300 an acre if you're going to go with that new sugar beet trait. It was so easy to budget for sugar beet seed for the longest time, and you could pick out when guys did their books wrong. You know, like it was so easy to pick out. I'm like, I don't think you got your data right. This year, there's going to be some that are trying that new trait, and it really bumped up the cost of their seed. Hired labor, sorry, that's another one that's in overhead expenses. Anyone found a good cheap hired man these days, right? They're a dime a dozen, right? We can pay them $12 an hour, and you'll get 1 million applicants. You know, we know hired labor has gone up significantly as well. So here is the projected break-evens that you guys have in your hands. I printed off, this is the 2023 again. One thing though I do want to show, this is the chart that scares me the most. And this is, I got these for corn, wheat, and soybeans. So this is Minnesota and North Dakota. I took all the Minnesota and the North Dakota data from 2006 to 2021. And look at the costs per acre. So we start off in 26. Here's 2008. You know, we had a good spring wheat year that year. Wheat kind of went crazy. And then 2012, we kind of popped her back. You know, 2012 is kind of the last boom time, I will say, for agriculture. We haven't seen anything back down under that again. I mean, we kind of hovered and then we took a jump and we haven't gone back down. Okay? So these costs that we're giving you, as much as I would like to say, just hold tight, we'll white knuckle it through and it'll get better in a couple of years, I don't know that it's going to, okay? I really don't, I'm a little bit nervous that it's not going to. It looks like 2016 we were able to go back under $350 an acre, but I know 2022 is going to be well over $400 an acre. I mean, that's the first time we're going to break $400 an acre, and it's going to be a ripping off the Band-Aid kind of jump. I don't know how high our cost per acre is going to be, but it's going to be ugly for 2022, and you guys can see what we're projecting here for 2023. Here's the same thing when it comes to soybeans. We had a big jump in 2012, right? And we haven't gone back down. I mean, we've kind of stuck up there in those costs of production, and the same thing for 2022. I mean, the cost of Roundup was significantly higher if you were able to use that. The cost of seed has gone up. The days of $265 an acre, that was 2010. We spent $265. Ooh, 2006, $199 an acre to raise soybeans. 15 years makes a big difference, all right? So as you're planning forward, I'm just a little nervous about how long these numbers are gonna, this might be our new reality for a while. And corn. $600 an acre is what we've had. You know, we were back to $322 in 2006. How did we spend $322? That's pretty good. Like that, I mean, you put seed and fertilizer together now and you're already over that, much less anything else. So you see the cost per acre that have gone up on corn. 2012, we took a jump up and we've stuck there ever since. We've never gone back down again. So, Ron, what else do you have to, you want to scare him anymore?
I guess if there's any specific questions, maybe can we slide back and take a look at the 22?
22 or 23?
Actually, the 22, getting back, where you just kind of in discussion, you know, the summary one of. So again, these total expenses from last year, you know, as Betsy talked about, like with wheat, you know, those long-term averages, you know, up until, you know, through 21, you know, we're below $400, you know, for an average for Minnesota, North Dakota. Was that blending owned and rented land?
That was only rented. Okay.
So with our budget from last year, with those higher fertilizer costs, you know, projected at $550, it's going to be interesting when we put this data together in March of next spring. How close are we going to be? I'm guessing that we'll be within probably $20 of all of those for an average for for the area. And we are going to see some pretty wide springs on wheat. Again, fertilizer costs made up almost half of that projected cost. So depending on when when you priced your fertilizer, especially the nitrogen cost, is going to make a big variance when we look at that. But I'm thinking these numbers, we're not going to be too far off, because again, to start with, those were based off some, a lot of years of hard factual trend data from actual farms, and put a lot of thoughts in on raw inputs. We all know, like this fall with fuel, hearing guys having to buy diesel at $4.80 a gallon for on-farm diesel. I mean, that starts adding up pretty quick. Or talking to a few farmers, it's like one guy said it makes me cry when I have to stop and fuel up to the semi. I feel like I'm having to remortgage the farm again just to pay for the fuel bill. So these will be interesting come next year. And the 23 numbers. So again, looking at the break-evens, all of those prices up from what we projected last year. But if we take a look at the 23 summary, Betsy.
Yep.
Farm Service Agency did come out with their projected planting prices for the 23 business year. For corn, that price that they're looking at to use in their cash flow plans for Minnesota is $5.40. And for soybeans, it's $12.40. So again, there is a margin on those currently if a person can average those. Wheat, that's the one that right now is tough to pencil out because they're recommending an $8 per bushel planting price. I'm coming up, but again, that's with $200 and some fertilizer price. Again, as of last week, West Central Ag, they projected fertilizer cost, if you were to price a normal blend for wheat acres in their area at about 157. So, that would drop things down and take about a full dollar off of that cost of production. So the point again, for you producers in the room, this is another year that you really need to, lock in your prices, figure out what your costs are, and then start making some sales accordingly. And Betsy will give you some advice on that at her afternoon breakout session. So with that advertisement, I'll turn it back to you.
All right. Yeah, so this afternoon we are going to talk more about marketing. But if you look at these prices, I mean, never in a million years would I think we need $9 spring wheat to break even. If you would have told me that I was saying that out loud 3 years ago, I would have laughed at you. You're not going to, $9, you're going to make a fortune at $9. Any guesses? You guys know I'm pretty conservative, okay? I mean, I'm like a risk management professional here. So where was my first 22 wheat sale? What am I going to be delivering? I did roll it to March. Any guesses on what my price is on that contract?
760.
I wish. I know, right? I sold like right away, and I sold like $6.95 December. And I'm like, well, I can't have a 6 in front of it. That's embarrassing. So then I rolled it to March to get the carry. And I mean, when I sold that, it looked like a pretty good deal. I'm like, oh my gosh, it's almost $7. I can start selling 22 wheat for $7, which I don't know that I've been able to do many times in my life. So I thought, geez, if this is my worst sale, I'm going to be swimming in it, right? You like book me, like let's start. I got to book a first class vacation somewhere. And it is. I mean, I was correct that prices only went higher from there. That is my worst sale, but I'm not making that. I mean, I thought I'd be making a ton of money if $7 was my worst sale. Holy cow, I was going to make a ton of money in the year. And then along came input prices to smack you on the side of the head and say, not so fast, Betsy. We need all that back. and then some. And so this afternoon, when we're talking about pricing right now, you can make money on corn today for 23. You can make money on soybeans today. Wheat is a little questionable. I will say wheat is a little iffy right now. But like Ron said, fertilizer is a huge impact on that as well. And so the slide from this afternoon that I wanted you guys to think about, and if you're not there, you got to know today. All of you guys ask yourself the question, why should I sell today, right? Give me a reason to sell, Betsy. I would like you guys to tell me why you're going to hold. Like, let's flip the mirror around here, guys. Tell me why you should hold. Okay, yeah. Look at that. Okay. It looks better on the balance sheet. Give me that thing.
I want it back.
I know, you got to have it back. So Ben's got one in his pocket, too. I know, a few of you guys got these. So I handed this.
That's pretty good, Jim, to remember.
I know, look at him holding it. And so this spring at our annual FBM meeting, I passed these out to guys, okay? And I said, keep it in your pocket, okay? I want this in your pocket. And I've gotten a lot of texts. A lot of guys actually still have them. And I should have made them for today. I apologize. But on April 5th, so this was April 5th, you could get cash. So, I mean, we know basis was garbage on April 5th, right? 22 basis wasn't real good. But if you needed to, you could get 1024 cash. You could have walked into the elevator and signed a contract for 1024 cash. And that probably had a cover your butt basis on it, right? I mean, basis got a lot. We could have done better. Corn, you could have signed 639 cash, and soybeans were 1410. And so the reason I handed this out, and I did not put my name on it because I didn't want anyone to haunt me with it later, but they're all haunting me anyway, is that I wanted you to remember a point in time. I really thought from April 5th to today we would have seen dramatic changes. We haven't, right? We've seen, I mean, wheat, I'd love to have 1024 wheat today if I could. I'd like to sell some more at that. Corn at 639 and soybeans at 1410. We're not that terribly far off of those. But I just kind of wanted you guys to have a moment in time where you remember what to do. And so if you don't have this little card, you can always pull up, your elevator website and do a screenshot if you have to. Like, just do a screenshot and remember what prices are, because it's easy to forget the opportunities that we missed out on. I've also sent out emails to my farmers, and I've said, print this off and post it. Ben, did you have that in your office, Les? Okay. I was at somebody's farm, and yeah, sure enough, they had it on their bulletin board, or they taped it to the fridge of where prices are today, so that you remember. And so maybe the same thing today. Where are prices today? You can make money for 23. Are you going to take advantage of it? Because these input prices are going to be sticky, okay? They are not coming down anytime soon. I can almost guarantee you corn, wheat, and soybean prices are going to go down a lot sooner than those input prices come down. There's going to be a lag, and we're going to be in a hurt. So yeah, questions about input prices from you guys? Yeah.
Is there some place to go? One of the things that can hurt the most is land rent.
Yep.
And most inputs we pay the price. Land rent, I mean, it's somewhat negotiable.
Yep.
But in this environment, that's hard to. Is there anything concrete you can go to that shows end issue or North Dakota Stats, Minnesota, that says the land rent increase from 20 to 21, if you have a 3-year contract you're going to renew, it went up 5% from 21 to 22, 22 to 23 went up 15%. Is there somewhere to go to show a landlord that, according to North Dakota Stats or NDSU or Minnesota, it went up like 22% in the last 3 years? Add up the changes so that you have some leg to stand on. If they want a 30% increase, you say, well, that's pretty high compared to what the university says.
I just saw one on Monday, but I can't remember what it was. And the thing, USDA tracks that, but the thought is that that's so lagged. The USDA land rentals they're too slow. They don't come back quick enough. There is something, but I cannot, right now, I'll have to think about that.
North Dakota State, Brian Parman has, put out some data, for the different areas or by county for North Dakota for 21 to 22. That's on the North Dakota Ag Econ website. I know I've got copies of that from different presentations, but some of that information, like the national ones he uses, that was produced from USDA. The University of Minnesota has a software called Fair Rent. One of the things that, I'm sure Betsy's ran into it, and I have too over the years of, you work at, it's a software tool where you put in virtually your budgets like this and have all the expenses projected, by crop, your projected production and price, and then whatever the difference is, okay, this is what's available for rent. And the issue that we've saw with so many people is, and I remember having been through this process going back into the 1990s when there's some tough economic times for production ag. We're going through the heart of the wheat scab time and all of that kind of thing. And you'd point out, it's like, man, we just can't afford to pay any more rent. And they've, had 2 or 3 other farmers waiting at the door to, take the contract over for an appreciated land rent. So that usually gets to be the biggest thing of, yes, it's one thing to illustrate, here's what normal is, but to them, if there's a higher bidder out there, a lot of loyalty gets ditched real quick.
There's extension rental workshops coming up.
Yep.
That would shed some light.
Yeah, Minnesota, I think up north they're going to be virtual, which is actually kind of handy. Then you can watch it from home. There's a Fair Rent U of M workshop that's coming up. And that is kind of designed not just for farmers, but also for landowners. I mean, they market it to landowners. So if you're in California with a quarter of land in, Polk County, you can attend this and try to figure out what the fair rent is going to be. So, I mean, it's nice to look at it from both ways too, because you also want the landowner to feel like they're getting fair value for their land too. Yeah. It's got to be a win-win.